Following these whale alerts are really useful. But don't just go panic. Look for the fundamentals first. Because fundamentals does matter for this particular asset when this is being moved in exchanges. It's not just to dump it to the market. Look at this. This is one of the easiest way you can understand whether this technology is going to be adopted, whether this asset is going to be used. So now you have this all across the board where you see literally adoption and expansion. So when this is happening in Korea, you need to look at Korean remittance market, which technology they are using, how things are changing. Because recently you just heard from the Ripple executives that most of those who are using RippleNet for remittance, even the banks, now they are starting to use the digital assets. That's a big deal there itself. Why? Now you look at this, okay, this is 2018, one of the cross-border remittance firm jump into RippleNet. Fine. Then this one, 2020, SendB, another platform, jumps on. Why? Because the competition is getting tough, you need to provide better service at a lower cost, and now 2021, you get another one, GME remittance. So all of them are one by one coming onto this platform. Now, why are they actually doing that? You just go on and check what really is happening in the website. So you just go on, say for example, if you want to log in, you can log in, but this one is kind of the easiest way you can do. Say you enter that website to actually see what they're actually going to do. Now we are looking at this, right? One cross, then SendB, then GME, one by one, all of them is actually moving here. Now, why do we really want to do that? Even if you are doing just this transaction, $700, you are saving like $70 in fee. So if you go to a bank, you are going to get crushed. That is not the easiest part. So yes, billions are being moved, but it's actually someone going to use. Now that's actually speculation from my end, looking at this fundamentals. So if you are scared, don't be. Look at this. It's really the utility, the expansion and the adoption of this technology. If a central bank itself is going on to use it and trying to do the pilot test along with two commercial banks, that means these remittance firms, they want to be in this market earlier. Why? Because if banks enter this phase, then they cannot actually show this. Meaning when you go to a bank, they're saying, okay, they are going to charge you this much. Now we are only charging you this. So when the banks enter here, it may take a little bit of time, a year or two with the CBDC, and then banks entering there. So they have till that time to go aggressive and do the business. So right now you have commercial banks doing this before the CBDC era is kicking in, and most of these are going to have hard time after that, right? So they are going to try come up with e-money and whatever they can, but right now this only validates the impact of these assets. Now, to the current market situation, we dropped. But when we dropped, there are people selling Bitcoin. But at the other end, you see massive buying interest. You are looking at the technicals and you are like, okay, there's a lot of stuff which I really do have to consider. Because right now, as we discussed, Bitcoin dominance went to the second standard deviation. If you remember, we talked about this in last 2-3 videos. And now, you see like, okay, it just went there, came close that and then dropped. So now we are looking at the price and then the price action to understand like, okay, what does that actually mean? Because historically speaking, you have these. Now this is like the 21 EMA. So when you're following the 21 EMA, you get this information and you are like, okay, that is also another possibility, right? Then you come on to XRP and you're like, okay, we do have a corrective pattern. So whether we are going to break to the upside or down, we don't know. But what's the possibility there? You can always look at the support and resistance trend line and then go to the indicators to get that one, because in this market when you are looking at it, that's like a lot of different assets, right? And you get the volatility to the upside, downside, it's totally confusing. But if you actually zoom in, slow yourself down and try to get the information directly from the market, it does work. So we're going to do that here now. Stay with me till the end. So fundamentally speaking, we can literally see like people are buying into this market. And then you actually go look at what's happening in and around the world, not only US and Fed. You're like, okay, the inflation and the central banks are now in line. They're like, okay, the inflation is increasing. We need to do something about this. And they won't actually hesitate to do that. That literally means there's going to be a lot more carnage as the rates go higher. And then they, come up with the FUD for Tether. But this one, kind of highlighted directly here, is actually a good deal, right? If we can actually redeem that to 7 billion, that means they do have reserves to give that, right? Then you go on further to see like, okay, people redeemed 7 billion, and what's literally happening there right now? It's amazing, because you go check the last 24 hours volume and Tether still stands as the top 155. So even if you combine Bitcoin, Ether, you're not even close to that, right? So that gives you the perspective of how much cryptocurrency market is kind of on to USDT. So now the issue which most of them don't understand is you buy an asset using USDT. Fine. Say for example, it's XRP. Now you have XRP, not USDT. If you can sell that to USDC, it's up to you. So you're not actually reliant on USDT. So even if USDT goes down, you can actually always sell that to USDC because you bought the asset itself. Now, if you are directly in some kind of trade into that asset, that's where you get stuck. So always buy the asset. If it's short term, keep it in the exchange. If not, move into the ledger. Be safe. Now, let's actually look at this. There's a weekly chart of XRP showing, all those volatility where there is nothing green. Now, you're looking at this, and right now, you're like, okay, where's the indicators? Are we even close to the overbought territory? And you're like, okay, the RSI is somewhere where we haven't been for a very, very long time. So for me, that signals an overbought territory where you also have your trend line resistance pushing you to the downside. So yes, you need to bounce from here and then break to the upside, because you do have this pattern aligning. Now, this particular pattern has been there for some time, and this also goes with Bitcoin as well. So now you're like, okay, fine. So that's long term. So what's short term? So you zoom in, and right now on a 4-hour chart, this is what you actually see. So on this particular chart, it actually shows you a possibility. Now, if we break to the upside, we move slowly to the upside. We grind to the upside. So you can come on to XRP chart. You can directly go on, say, a 4-hour chart to see what's happening right now as we talk, right? So there's a real-time chart for XRP, and you're looking at this. And as you see, we are close to a breakout. We are close to the resistance breakout, to the upside, not to the downside. So when you look at this, okay, if we break, we have an opportunity to go test 0.533. Now that's on a 4-hour chart. You step back, zoom out, and see what that level stands for. And then you are like, okay, it has been a previous resistance. Now it has been a support for some time. We broke back to the downside. So most likely 0.53 and that range 0.55 is going to be a resistance. So yeah, you may actually go up, but that doesn't mean you are actually directly going to $2, $5, like that. That's going to be a massive resistance zone as you move up, because you also have the trend line support here. Now, when the Bitcoin dominance drop, it does mean money is actually moving to altcoins. So that's when you're looking, okay, what's happening with Bitcoin? Bitcoin previously had dropped below the moving average on a monthly, but you came back and closed just below the moving average. So if you zoom in here right now, that's the same stuff which we are observing. We actually closed below the moving average, but this monthly candle we'll have to actually see where it go and close. So if you manage to wick and go back close above that 33,000, that's actually a huge milestone. Now, one of the aspects you have to understand is last time the first drop was like around 45% from the 21 moving average on a weekly. Next time, that was 46. So it was somewhat similar, right? And then you come here right now. This time the last one was like 39, and currently it's somewhere around 33. So yeah, it's close, but you still may have a little bit low end. So that's where we are like, okay, there is a possibility that we may drop. So if we drop, we are looking at the altcoins. And then the altcoins show you a similar structure of that bounce and run, that kind of stuff, where you're like, okay, we move that, and then you are directly jumping to the downside. Now, as you reach this support trend line, you're bouncing. So this is your first test of the top and then the bottom. So now you have a range. Now we're waiting to see where it reverses, and it happened to reverse here. So now you can just extend that line, and the price happens to completely respect that trend line. So next time when we are going up, yes, the moving average is going to be the first level of resistance, after which it's going to be this trend line. So that's 0.8 range. So even if you bounce on the short term, reach 0.5, consolidate and move higher to 0.8, we still have resistance to move above. Because at the same time you're looking at the Bitcoin, it should actually be able to move above 37. If not, we still have a possibility that we may come back down. So you are inside this pattern. The pattern is bullish, but there is crypto market. We don't know what's going to happen in the short term. So you can go to the upside, then again come back to the downside, which is a possibility in this market. And during this whole volatile scenario, if you are looking at the entire market and the fluctuations, you're like, okay, there are a lot of coins which are slowly starting to move. So if it's a bear market which you are looking at, you should be looking everything in red. But there's only a few, and most of them are like these. And you see, like, all of these are stable coins. Now, if it's me in your position, I would be asking, so the stable coins are losing money. What does that mean? Money is being moved from stable coins to real assets. So then you try, see, like, okay, what are in green? And you're like, okay, there are a lot of different assets which are starting to go in green on a daily basis. And as you move through, you actually happen to see different assets moving. Now, in first, that's one of the biggest stuff which you guys have to keep in mind. The asset class here is, say, 0 to 100. That's like, the average day is like 5, 6, 7%. But when you move on to the next 100 to 200, you get like 15, 10 as your average. Then you move on to 200 to 300. So now you see like, okay, the average is increasing. The average is 15, the average is 20. So as you go to small, medium, nano caps, you're going to see these blasting way higher. But the level of risk there is going to be super high, and you may not even be able to take the profit, right? So you follow the assets, you follow the price action, and that's all going to be good, because there are volatility in some exchanges, and you may be that one lucky guy to take that profit. Recently when KNC went to $109 in Bitrue, if you were one of that lucky guys who were able to take that profit, that's great. But not everyone could do that. Now, I moved from Binance to KNC a little bit, trying to sell it there, but by that time the price dropped and I didn't get the liquidity to sell. But right now, if we look at that, it's actually moving 30%. So that's not a bad deal. So if you think this is going to be a bear market and you're slowing down, moving out of the crypto market, think again. Why? Because in the macro scale, you are still super bullish. This is your weekly, and this is what the charts show you. Now, if you go in saying, okay, I'm going to be super focused, I'm going to follow the trend line tightly, what you're going to do is just jump into your RSI. And once you have your trend lines in the RSI, you're like, okay, we are still in that pattern, which is at the long-term bottom. Now, that's literally like 5-6 years. We have never reached this low in RSI, and right now you're there. Or at least in this chart, the whole history, we have never been here. That's like massive buy. That's over sold territory, right? Now you go look at the MACD and it's like, okay, we had touched that zone. So the strength is showing that we are at the bottom. The other one is showing we are near the historical bottom. So for me, that, buying low is really hard psychologically, but that always benefits you. Remember the March 2020? We were talking, you go back and watch that video during the same crash timeline and see what we were talking about. It was something similar, and we happen to go back up. Say here, March 2020, you see that the double bottom happening, and we were talking about a rounded bottom and double bottom here. It worked out. maybe this one won't work. But I personally think this one is going to work. So if you want these kind of updates for all the different assets in your portfolio, you can actually look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below, where we are going to do a lot of different stuff with all the assets. So now we know the wave structure, now we know the short-term pattern, now we know the long-term pattern, what your targets are. So before you even move out of the market, you now know where to take profit and what level or percent you have to actually take out. So guys, if you received value for your time, please do hit that like and subscribe button. That supports the channel a lot. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.